Hello, my name is Andrew Hada. I'm a writer-director whose film, The Empty Space, is actually in a festival right now. It's in the Horror Hotel Festival in Columbus, Ohio. If you're in Columbus, Ohio, and you're listening to this right now, go check it out. Also, give it a vote, I think. I don't know if they're voting, but I do know that we're going to have some good news soon. And here's my guest, Joshua Whitney Epp. This week, on our final week of the first part of our Texas Chainsaw Month, our least successful month that we've done.
I mean,
People don't like the Texas Chainsaw movies as much as Andrew does, but that's okay. We're still going to cover them. I don't care. We are covering the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation. The one nobody's seen. That's right. Everyone's favorite. Yeah, Josh, give us a plot synopsis.
so some teens leave prom to go get killed in the woods.
in Austin, in what's clearly not even 10 miles away from Austin, Texas. Okay, this movie was made in 1994. It was written and directed by Ken Henkel, who was the original writer along with Toby Hooper of the original movie. And so I feel like they brought him back and they're like, oh man, we're going to get the same thing as the first one. Because he was like, oh, I want this to be the true sequel to the first movie. And like you could tell that they were like, yes, this is going to be great. And then he gave us this movie. It stars Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey, also, but his name is Robert Jacks, and he plays Leatherface. They really go all in with
the cross-dressing. Yeah.
Or with, I think, yeah, we'll get to it. But yeah, this movie was a huge flop, and it made them stop making movies until the remake. It also, it's also notoriously the one that everyone hates. But yeah, Josh, I have a secret confession to make. I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I loved it because
I don't know if I loved it. That's a pretty strong.
But it's like coming off the last one. It's no. I mean, obviously the first one has its own place in history, but this is definitely better than the last two.
And I feel like this movie, although it doesn't hit the marks, I feel like it doesn't deserve the kind
I think it reaches for something interesting. Somewhat, I don't know.
It reaches for the stars, and it gives us a little bit of radiation from it. So it doesn't quite get there. Also, I do want to point out at the very beginning, Josh, only a handful of people are going to know this, but Josh, doesn't the opening narration guy sound exactly like Mr. Plinkett from Red Letter Media?
August 18th, 1973.
Star Wars The Phantom Menace was the most disappointing thing since my son.
A little bit. I mean, it's definitely the same tone.
So it's 4 kids. They're going to prom. They're leaving prom, right?
Yeah, they go into prom. They're basically just getting to prom, and then
they leave for no reason.
The girl's like, Barry, where's my boyfriend, Barry? And she walks, and he's like 5 feet from the entrance making out with a girl. She gets in the car angrily. He jumps in to explain himself, and then the other two were in the back seat, getting high. Because his girlfriend's mad that he was making out with another girl, and he berates her for being mad. He's like, "Come on, babe, you know men need it. Come on." And she's like, "You're right. It's my fault."
He also tells her it's her. Yeah, he says it's her fault.
Yeah,
and it is because she's in a Texas Chainsaw.
And we should also say too, they do the thing with Renee Zellweger where it's like, look at this dumpy, lame virgin, and it's just a very attractive woman wearing glasses.
This is the most attractive I've ever seen Renee Zellweger, and they're like, "Oh my God, Jenny, you have glasses and messy hair, and you look hot." But yeah, so they hit someone, and then they're like, "We got to go find something," and then they go to the real estate agent's place.
Actually, she's an insurance agent, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't come up. It's just this woman's office, and she's just like, "Calm down, kids. I'll call a tow truck."
And then also the woman's like, they're like, "Oh yeah, thanks. Oh, can we go talk to that service station that's right next door?" And both of these places are literally just someone's house. Like they don't even pretend.
Yeah.
to look like.
It looks like it was filmed in the suburbs for the most part, which is kind of a weird twist. The others, like the stoner boy who was with Renee Zellweger today, he stays behind to like stay with the
with
cars.
the guy who's been hit with the car, right?
And that's when Matthew McConaughey shows up.
Which I like his introduction. He like comes up and he's like talking, and he's like, "This guy's dead." And then the boyfriend's like, "No, he's not. We just talked to him." He's like, "He's dead, I said." They're like, "No, he's not." And then Matthew McConaughey breaks his neck and he goes, "Well, he's dead now."
Yeah. And then he goes, that's the guy. This is actually where I was like, okay, this seems to be like a farce, because the other guy starts to run away, but very half-heartedly. Like he's briskly jogging away, and Matthew McConaughey yells, "First, I'm gonna kill you. It ain't no fucking biggie." Just gets in his car and starts chasing him, and the kid's running, but like slowly. And Matthew McConaughey's like, "Come on!" He's like, "Come on, Mister, don't kill me!" Like he's not even trying to get away
because he's running away, and Matthew McConaughey is just like keeping up with him. He's not behind him. He's next to him, so they're having a conversation. And also, when he's running, 90s rap music is playing.
It's still kicking.
This is the first time that any of these movies have had like a legit soundtrack. So then Matthew McConaughey runs that dude over with his car. And then we cut back, and like the girl who's not Renee Zellweger.
We really should have looked. I want to say it's Heather, maybe.
Well, I know. Yeah, it's Heather, and then Renee Zellweger's name is Jenny, and Heather is played by Lisa Marie Newmar. And like we're saying this, but they all did a pretty good job. They just didn't have
a good job. Like they play up how like ridiculous it is. I mean, I guess the point against it is it's not very scary, but that doesn't really seem to be the point.
And like especially Heather, I feel like she did a pretty good job. So they get like, and they get to the Sawyer house, and Leatherface kind of comes out. Or no, he's like playing with her hair, and then she notices because he does the Sideshow Bob, and he literally like kicks over a rake. And she's like, "Oh my God." And so he like starts screaming, and then she tries to run away. Then he grabs her and he pulls her through the whole house. And it's like, I mean, it was super effective when Leatherface just hit him over the head and like put him away. But I feel like that first scene where he's like dragging her through the house takes so long that's also pretty effective.
Yeah,
like,
where like he puts her in like a freezer, and she gets out multiple times, and he keeps putting her back in. You know? Yeah.
They cut to Barry.
He's being held captive by
W.
W.E. Yeah, they call him. Who's I guess a Sawyer who just quotes history a lot.
Yeah, what does he quote? He quotes he quotes Machiavelli.
He'll like say a quote, and he'll be like, Machiavelli, or he'll be like, "You will not cross this line again, Ulysses S. Grant." Like that's pretty much all he says. And he has a gun on him, but Barry gets in the house. But keep in mind, Barry just heard his girlfriend screaming.
Well, before he does that, Barry goes, "Don't let me in the house because then it's officially kidnapping. My dad's a lawyer." And then W's like, "I'm going to kill you even more now."
He gets in the house away from the guy with the shotgun, and he locks the door. But then he goes and casually takes a piss, like before even starting to look for his girlfriend, who's just screaming for help. And he's walking through this obvious murder house, completely nonplussed, like doo-doo-doo. And he only freaks out when he turns around in the bathroom and sees a decomposing body at the tub or whatever.
Yeah, and by that it means like he literally passes. On the door of the bathroom is a skinned body that's just hanging on the door like a fur rug. And then the bathroom is full of like just garbage and nonsense. And then he turns around and sees the dead body. He's like, "Oh my God." It's like, you should have realized this like a long time ago. But then Leatherface catches him and hits him over the head with a hammer. And then it cuts to W, and W goes,
"What's going on in there?"
It's like, how do you not know? You should know what's going on in the house because you're the one who put him in there. While that's happening, Renee Zellweger is like, she meets Matthew McConaughey, and Matthew McConaughey's like, "Hey, get in the car." And she's like, "Why?" Like, and they have an argument, and then eventually she gets in the car, and then Matthew McConaughey's like, "Look behind you."
he also like he doesn't try to. He's like, yeah, I've seen your boyfriend. I know where he is. Get in the car right now. And it's like he's so menacing. There's no reason for her to get into the car other than the fact that it's Matthew McConaughey.
She's like, it's the same Christian Bale thing where it's like, yeah, he was yelling at me and he looked like a psychopath, but he was really handsome, so I did get in the car.
Yeah.
And like he immediately starts acting like a crazy person. He wants her to look around, like behind her, and then she looks behind her, and there's like he's hung her dead body, her boyfriend, and the other dude's body off of the tow truck, which doesn't make a lot of sense because she should have seen the bodies
Yeah, she just
hanging off the
didn't
truck.
look
Like a
behind
truck
her.
is in a
Yeah.
tank. Yeah, it doesn't have like shields up.
Yeah.
But I will say that scene with the both of them, you kind of like realize like, oh yeah, these are the two stars. These two are going to be stars. Because
Yeah.
even though the scene is the same type of dialogue, it doesn't come off as cheesy or as kind of like, look, we're doing this intentionally. It comes off realistic. Okay, so then they get Jenny back to the house, and then it's the movie as we know it, where they have the dinner scene, and then the real estate.
She first, yeah, it's the insurance lady, Darla. You know, she's like, you got to help me, and then of course she's in on it. She's actually Matthew McConaughey's girlfriend, I think.
Yeah, well, they're like kind of like Bonnie and Clyde, where he beats her and she beats him.
Yeah, it's not a good relationship, but they do seem to be dating each other. Because they imply she's getting her, like, Darla's getting Renee Zellweger ready for dinner. And she's like, sorry, this job just stresses him out. She's like, it's his job to kill people. And she talks about how, like, he's paid to do it by, like, a secret, like, society kind of, like, I don't know. It's like a weird
But she makes it a point to say it's not the government. It's a secret society of people.
Yeah, she's like, who do you think killed Kennedy? Which is, I mean, obviously it's supposed to be kind of a new world order.
None of these people, except for Matthew McConaughey, have a Texas accent, but I've given each one of them a Texas accent.
I mean, your version of what you think a Texas accent sounds like, which is weird because you're from Texas. You think
why don't we eat these Texans?
But she kind of implies it's like the Illuminati, and it is funny because obviously it's like, why would the Illuminati hire some like random psychos to just randomly torture and kill people?
Well,
that's kind of like what the CIA has done a lot of. So
then the Illuminati dude comes in and he's like, hey, I stopped by for no reason. He's just doing his performance check, I guess. Oh, the reason we do this is because we want to instill fear. Like, we want to make the American people remind them that they should still be scared to live. Which, yeah, again, I mean, yeah. we just call that the GOP at this point. Out of all of the dinner scenes, other than the first one, this is the one that captures the chaoticness of the first one since the first one. Like, you don't really know what's going to happen at any other point. Like, the Illuminati shows up, then he just leaves. She grabs a gun, but then it doesn't work, but then it does. Like, Leatherface is dressed in, like, a girl's clothes,
It was two barrels, and she fires one and it doesn't go off. Then he grabs it and fires the next one and it does go off. So if she'd only pressed the trigger again, it would have worked out.
Yeah, but they're, like, setting people on fire. It just, like, it feels like the first one where you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like waiting to see when the shoe is going to drop. And it just keeps kind of dangling there. It was a very interesting dinner scene, which is the first time I can really say that since the first.
Like, I think she just, kind of gets up and runs out, and then he chases her through the woods.
And which I really like that scene. I think because of how overacted it is, where
Get that bitch! Go!
he says it is so funny to me that I couldn't stop laughing.
And he's kind of like gyrating in the way he does in Magic Mike almost, like as he's doing it. It is a phenomenal performance.
It's the only scene where the film looks well lit, as opposed to they just put lights on whatever needed to be shown. And so that was my favorite scene, and then it was followed immediately by my second favorite scene, where it just randomly cuts to the director's parents or grandparents.
Thank you, Mrs. Spotted.
It's a beautiful morning.
Are clearly not actors. And then, like, Leatherface is chasing her, and they get Renee Zellweger in the car. And those two are my favorite characters just because of how terrible they were at acting. Like it was almost enduring because they're so old and cute.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to see more of these guys. But yeah, then Leatherface and Matthew McConaughey's clear body double show up.
They team up in his tow truck.
Who's in the air? There's also an airplane flying around.
That's not. Okay. So what happens is the tow truck tips the RV. The two old people die. I assume you don't see him again.
You don't see him again. Yeah.
Renee Zellweger gets out. She's running. Matthew McConaughey gets out, and he's running after her. And then an airplane, like a biplane, like an old timey biplane, just dips down and like flies low enough to just conk Matthew McConaughey on the head and flies off.
And let me be clear again. It is Matthew McConaughey's character, played by what is clearly not Matthew McConaughey. And starts dancing, and then the Illuminati guy pulls up in a limousine. And he picks up Renee Zellweger, and he's like, don't worry. That's where he explains, like,
it was supposed to be a spiritual experience. I can't tell you how disappointed I am.
Yeah, he's like, this is like a to elicit emotion, blah blah blah, psychology. Yeah.
And then he's like, all right, let's go. And then the movie just ends.
And he's like, oh, I could take you to the hospital to police. And she's just talking to a cop. And he's like, oh yeah, things like this happen all the time.
But I feel like at least the fact that it's going off and trying different things makes it a lot more interesting. Because even though Tobe Hooper's movie is trying different things, it's trying to be more of a farce, it's also like has pretty much the same themes of, like the themes of Tobe Hooper's kind of builds up the family aspect, where it's like, oh, this is a satire of the American family, and especially in the 90s or the 70s and the 80s, where this movie kind of bumps up the satire of this is how we consume gruesome news. Like it like in the first one, it's constantly airing these gruesome, horrific stories on the news. And that's kind of like, oh yeah, we're so accustomed to see this gruesome stuff that we ignore it when it's right in front of us. Where this one, it's like, oh yeah, now we've become even more accustomed that we have to manufacture it to even feel anything. And I feel like that's an interesting theme to take for a Texas Chainsaw movie, where that's literally why people are here.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, it kind of felt like the way that's like, oh, they're not even... It's not like a cannibal shack in the woods now. It's like they're in the suburbs eating pizza, but they're still going to torture and kill you. They're just paid to do it.
Like, they don't even have a purpose anymore. They're not trying to eat you. They're not trying to, like, make you part of their team. They're literally just trying to scare you until you're dead.
Yeah, and so that you'll. And it's just because someone's paying them to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, we've crossed through. We've become so desensitized. We search out horror as opposed to just ignoring it. And you know what? That's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool theme to make, and it has interesting things to say about it, even if it is kind of wrapped in this weird farce about Leatherface. I'm not gonna say every single thing worked.
Yeah, I will like the part of the problem is like it's so like once it gets to the dinner, it's so farcical that like, you are like, oh, what happens next? But you're also not really like, there's not like the kind of terror of it by that point. And it also goes on a little too long.
This is weird. I don't think it goes on too long. I think it starts too late. If that makes sense.
That yeah, because you're almost.
We didn't spend so much time like with the big reveal about Leatherface, and we got right into Matthew McConaughey, like kind of playing with these kids, like the way a cat plays with a pigeon, where he lets them go and he brings them back and lets them go. Like if we saw more of that, I feel like it would have been more clear what the theme is, because I feel like people just miss the theme because by the time they've gotten to the Illuminati part, they're kind of checked out. And also I think a lot of people dismiss it because of the Illuminati part. Okay, so I feel like this is the end for this first part. We're going to come back in October. We're going to restart with the remake of Texas Chainsaw and go from there. But I feel like this was a good one to end on because we kind of see all the different ways you can take this movie. And you see Tobe Hooper, who clearly wanted to take it in a funnier way. You see a guy who literally got fired and then rehired. And then like a studio who doesn't care what happens, and then now you see the second writer who kind of wants to see, or kind of wants to play with the other theme of the film about how we consume gruesome media. And so I think that's a good place to stop. Now, when we come back, it's going to be like, oh, here's how the legacy affected the rest of the movies. Because I feel like even Leatherface, the prequel, it's like every prequel where it's more like how can we build on this great franchise, as opposed to like, I don't think they cared even in Leatherface 3 how to build on a great franchise.
Yeah.
And also, this is the end of our first season. We're going to take a quick break, maybe for a month or two, just because Andrew's got some filmmaking to do. But also, when we come back, we're going to try some new stuff, have some more fun, have a summer of guests before we go back to just me and John.
So,
But yeah, also, if you're in Columbus, Ohio, this week we should be. So go check out The Empty Space. Tell us what you think. Send us emails. And also check us out on YouTube and whatever podcasting you listen to. Listen to us. Watch us. Watch our short films and our feature films. And we'll see you guys in a few months. This has been The Bomb Squad.